Um, it looks like I am recording now. So we're going to get started, guys, with a discussion of OneNote today. So um, I just put a link in the chat. You should be able to log into OneNote through that, and it should open up your class notebook. So we're going to go through a discussion of like what is in the class notebook, how you use it, and how you can kind of use this for students. So some of us joined the class a little bit late, which is fine, but we're going to go over how you guys can get all the pages. So if you're someone who has just joined today, so for instance, like Miss Lane here, I know that I threw you in today. If you log into OneNote, your pane is gonna look significantly different than mine. So long story short, this is how it looks from the teacher side, as if I set this up for my class. So Miss Lane, she's a new student in this class. If she goes to any of these pages that have been put in here for her, they're going to be blank. She's not going to have anything in here just yet. So I'll show you how to get that information and what you guys can do in order to kind of have this make sense. So has anyone used this before? Do we have any returning users, or is mostly everyone, we're trying to get OneNote off the ground for the first time?
Yes.
So most of us are trying to
get OneNote off the ground.
So we're trying to get it off the ground for the first time. So that's good to know.
It's been a while. I've used it once, so it's been a really long time since I used it.
Yeah, and it's a little tricky. It takes some kind of some adjustments. So my advice is this: if you're planning to use this for when kids come back to school face to face, what I would encourage you to do is spend some time, maybe this weekend, kind of getting your class notebook set up and ready to go. So I'm going to go through a couple of pages, but here's what I want to draw your attention to first. OneNote kind of functions pretty similarly to Microsoft Word. You've got these. Okay, I see, Ms. Foster. You have these tabs here down on the up in the top frame of this pane, and it looks very similar to Microsoft Word. There's a couple of ones that I want to turn your attention to, though. This home screen, this is where you have all of your text editing information. I'm going to show you how that works in just a little bit. But the other one is this class notebook page. And this is probably the most important tab that you will see when you set your notebook up. So if you went to that link that I put in the chat, and I'll put it in there one more time, you are seeing what it looks like to be a student on OneNote. So just a quick little walkthrough of how I use this every day. I kind of use OneNote sort of as you would like an old school overhead projector or document camera. I keep up the work that kids are working on, and we work on it together throughout the class, and the kids are simultaneously working in their own notebook. The beautiful thing about OneNote is this: as I'm logged in as a teacher, I can see everyone that's in the class, right? I've got everyone who signed up, and I'll show you how to put people into a notebook. But I can go into someone's notebook, and I can see all of the work that they've completed. So for instance, if I want to see what Mr. Sager's been working on, I can go in and see in real time what he's doing and what he's able to do. So give me 1 second, Miss Antwi, I got to put you in the notebook in order to do to play around in it. Give me 1 second. Okay. So here's the basic breakdown of this notebook. You have these 3 sections that come standard when you set up a class notebook. You've got the teacher only section, the content library, and the collaboration space. And I'm going to talk to you really quickly about what these things are. So for instance, if I am building pages in my notebook and I don't want the students to see them, these are just my working documents, that's what you use the teacher only section for. The kids can't see them, they can't access them, they can't even get into that information. Then you've got the content library. If you just joined the class today and you just got put into the notebook, what you can do as a student is you can go into the content library and you can copy by right-clicking any of the pages into your own notebook. So kids can go into the content library page, they can get handouts out, they can put them in their own notebook. It kind of is like sort of a pickup pile for kids. And then finally, you've got this collaboration space. The collaboration space we'll talk a little bit about in a few minutes. This is a space where Students can work on this in real time. They can all collaborate on the same page. You can use it as a whiteboard. Oftentimes in my class, sometimes we'll play Pictionary in here where kids are, drawing things on the page. And as you can see, the last time we did this training, folks had some fun coloring and drawing on this. So let me jump into how you actually set this up. And if you're joining for the first time, all this information is available in the content library of the notebook, so that you can go back and refer to it. Give me 1 second. I think Mr. Frazier, he was in here before. Yes, he was. Let me add Miss Antwi really quickly. It'll take me about 5 seconds to do. And actually, that's a good thing to kind of walk through in the moment. So, so you guys can see how this works. When you set up your notebook, okay, you've got to do it through the OneNote service. So I always log into office.com and I click OneNote when I want to go into this program. So here's what you need to know. There are 2 types of notebooks that you can have in OneNote. There's a class notebook and there's a notebook. The notebook is kind of what you see in your staff SharePoint. It's just an aggregating tool for documents. You can actually access that through Teams. The thing about the regular notebook, it's not going to allow you to have all the features that the class notebook has. So when you set up your notebook, make sure you do it as a class notebook, okay? So once you are inside OneNote from office.com, you'll see a button that says Create Class Notebook under the Class Notebook tab. Another important point, once your notebook is set up, and I'm going to show you how to add students to your notebook in a second, there's this menu called the manager menu, the notebook manager menu. And you can always get there by clicking this little black notebook tab in the class notebook section. So it's actually right here. And I'm going to show you how to add students to that in a moment, because we got to get Miss Antwi in so she can see the information. So when you're adding students, this little black button right here under class notebook is kind of like the catch-all. It's really important. You can set this up however you would like to. You can do 1 notebook per prep. You can do 1 notebook per class period. All your students in one, however you want to do it. I teach 9th grade lit, so I put all of my 9th grade students into 1 notebook. If you've got multiple preps, it might be useful to set up multiple notebooks for your multiple preps. So here is how you add students, and you can do this 2 ways. You can click this little black Manage Notebooks button once you are set up as a teacher and you've set up your notebook, or you can click this Add Remove Students. Here is the catchy thing. So I think Mr. Scow needs to be added as well. Once you click this Add Remove Students or this Notebook Manager, it's going to bring up all your class notebooks. We're working in the OneNote Training notebook. And here is where you can add teachers. I can see every student that's in here. And we want to add Miss Antwi. So in order to do that, you simply type the student's name in here, and it will pop up with this information. So the tricky thing is this. Some students, like I know for a second, Andy Smith, one of our coworkers, there are multiple Andy Smiths in Cobb County. So if you have a student who has a popular name, you may want to go to their Synergy page or through excuse me, I'm blanking, through the portal to check their full Cobb County address, because you'll need to type that in order to get that information. So we want to add Miss Antwi, and we want to add Mr. Scow. Let me put him in here. Yep. And we're ready to add. You go down to the bottom, you hit next, you hit update, and those students are now in your notebook. Here's one of the catches with this there. Once the students come in, their notebooks come in blank. It's not my favorite feature of OneNote. They come in and their notebook is completely blank. And we're going to show you how to get that information and how to build stuff in a second. So Miss Antwi, you can click that link now. It's going to open it up for you. And Mr. Scow as well, if you want to. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. I'm sorry if I'm not. You can click the link I just put in the chat, and it'll open it up the features so you can see what it looks like from a student perspective. So if you click this black button here, once you've set, got you. So, you can also add co-teachers under the same information. If you click this black Manage Notebooks tab, you can add secondary teachers, and you can also remove students on that same page just by clicking the little X next to their name. So that is general setup. So I'm going to show you guys in a second how you actually make activities. So there are two basic distinctions in OneNote. And I think it's helpful to think about this in not so much as like a Microsoft Word format, but more so in a kind of website format. It's closer to building a free form website than it is, bless you, than it is building a Word document. So some information that you kind of need to know is if you are trying to create a material, you've got this information called pages, and you can click add a page down here to start fresh. So essentially, any handout I do for 9th Lit, I make it on its own page. You put the title up here, and it's a free form document that you can add pretty much anything to. And here's what you'll notice about it and kind of some of the pros and cons with using OneNote. If you click anywhere outside the range, it's going to create a floating hosting box for you. It's called a pane. So these panes, you can put virtually anything you would like in them. And you can see the different materials you can put in them by clicking this insert button. So if you want to add things like GIFs, you can insert pictures from your computer. You can take pictures from your camera. You can even search online. You can put hyperlinks in here. You can upload audio of your voice. Something that I've been doing with students with remediation is I'll record my voice so they can hear what I'm saying and they can play it back to themselves and hear the directions. For our math people out there, you can insert equations directly into it. And you can put multiple elements inside of these panes. So if you look, this one is free floating. All the information here is all in one singular pane. So a couple of other just pieces of information with this platform. You can also upload full PDFs. You can upload full Word documents. If you go to this insert file button and click insert file as printout, what that's going to do is it's going to give you a full printout of the PDF. And it's really nice if you're like doing a reading assignment. The kids can write on there. They can annotate what they're working on, and you can actually click over anything that you put on this form, and you can put a text box in there. So if you want kids to write directly on whatever they're working on, you can have them do that as well. So you can put multiple elements into a pane, excuse me. And here's the big question as well. There is a desktop app for OneNote. It comes on your school computer. You can open it up just by going to the search bar down at the bottom and opening up OneNote. It's your preference, however you want to build materials. I think it's a little bit easier to do them in the desktop app. But the thing is, keep in mind, anything you do kind of offline, it's not going to function like a Google Doc. It's not going to upload instantaneously. So if you're building things offline and you're not seeing them in your OneNote folder, what I would do is click this little sync button and it will send everything to the cloud. Sometimes it does take a couple minutes, but that's one of the shortcomings of the platform. So let's talk about how we assign and how we grade materials. Pretend this is a material that I want students to work on. I want them to complete in their own notebook so I can come back and look at it. What you will do in order to do that is you've got to click this class notebook page, or this tab again, and you're going to see some functions here. You've got distribute page, distribute new section, copy to content library, and review student work. So I'm going to walk you through these features just a little bit, but just in case you came in a little late, we talked about these sections before. These sections are the ones that are already going to come loaded with your OneNote when you set up a class notebook. You've got the teacher only section. That is where you can build things if you don't want kids to see the materials you're working on. Oftentimes I'm like 2-3 days ahead trying to build stuff so kids they can't see that, but I can. You've got the collaboration space that we're going to talk about, that any kid can edit materials that you drop in there. But it does include the delete function. So the kids can delete it out of there. So I wouldn't put anything in there that's like too precious. And finally, you have the content library. So if you're someone who just joined us, you can get all these materials that we're working on by clicking on the content library, and you can see them. You can copy them to your own notebook as well. So here is the information with distributing stuff to kids. When I am ready to have students work on things, you've got to distribute this information first. So your options are this. You can distribute a new section to students, which means you can add basically a divider to their notebook. Say you want them to have a divider for quizzes or for homework or something like that. You can name this whatever you want and push it to the students. And once you've done that, you can populate that with pages. So if you click this distribute page button, you've got a couple options. You can distribute it to everyone in the class by clicking distribute page. You can distribute it to individual students by doing individual distribution, or you can distribute it to a certain group. And I'm going to show you how you can do group work as well with this in a couple of minutes as well. Or you can also send it to another notebook or delete it for you. So for instance, I'm going to keep using Miss Antwi as an example, but if you're okay with that, Miss Antwi, of course. Miss Antwi, we're pretending she's a student that just got added to my class and she has nothing in her notebook right now. I want her to have this page on how to assign and grade papers. So I'm going to click this individual distribution and it's going to bring up this page for us. It takes a second to load, of course. And it gives me every kid in my class in this notebook. I'll find Miss Antwi, hit next, and then it's going to ask me where I want to send it. And I want to put this in her class notes page. Click that, hit distribute. And it does take a couple seconds to send. So you've got to wait for it to process and to hit 100% complete here in the right-hand side. But once it's done, that information will be available to that student. So Miss Antwi, you see it's done loading. She can go to her class notes page by clicking on her name, and how to assign and grade papers should be in there. A common problem is students will go, you just sent me the work, but I can't find it. Sometimes just ask them to refresh the page so that they can go ahead and it'll populate then in a second. The other thing I do want to show you is distributing a page to everyone in the class. If you click this distribute page button, it's just going to take you directly to the sections that all of the kids have. So for instance, I built a quiz for the whole class and I want to send it to the quiz section. You just click quiz and hit distribute. Looks like I got some. Ms. Sutton's got a great question, and I'm going to show you how to actually invite the kids to the notebook for the first time. Just like I did with you guys, I just encourage teachers to kind of get a link that they can send to students either by email or just drop it in the chat. And if the kid is in your class, they can automatically get there. So do we have any questions on how to like create things and how to assign them to students, anything like that? Because I'm going to get to you, Dr. Sutton, in just 1 second.
Rossi, can you repeat what you said about the distribution page?
Sure. So if you click this distribution page under class notebook, this is how you get actual materials into the kids' notebooks. So your options are here are distribute page. This function, it'll go to every kid in the notebook. Okay. Individual distribution, it'll go to only kids you select. And group distribution, I'll show you in a little bit how you can assign groups using the manager notebook function. So if you want to do like a group project, you can send it just to certain students. Does that answer your question, Chandler?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Do you have to, here's the second part of the question. Do you have to like this everything, you have to create everything yourself and put in there? What if you have a PDF of something that you already like? Do you have to
So if you
retype it
already
in?
like something, and I'll show you right now, actually, if you hit insert and you go to this file button, so there's a couple of ways you can do that. And I'll show you kind of how I prefer to do that with my 9th graders. But you can insert a file as a printout. And let me see, let me find a PDF. So these are my students' grade reports. It's just the insert the PDF I had on hand. And what it'll do is it'll actually put a kind of scrollable picture in here for kids. Of course, it's taking a minute to load, but you'll see this is the whole PDF, and now it's been inserted into the page. So the beautiful thing about kind of using the insert as a PDF is if kids double click on this, they can type over the PDF. And if they click off, their work's going to save. So it's kind of nice if you have something that has like an open response, like you want kids to type on a line or you want them to circle something, you can put those PDFs directly in there. And it's simple just to get rid of them. You go up to the top of it. Sorry, this is a long one. Of course, I picked like the longest one in my stuff. And if you click like the pane itself and hit delete, it's gone. So that's how you get PDFs into there. I do want to show you one last thing when it comes to grading student work. Under this
Can I
class
ask a
notebook
quick
page-
question?
Yeah, of
I'm
course.
sorry. I keep trying to not interrupt anyone and then I
No,
end
you're
up
okay.
interrupting. So, and this may be something later, but this has been an ongoing issue since I've started using OneNote, and it might just be my kids or my error, but they are continuously deleting whatever I put in there that they're trying to type on. And even when I've tried to put it as a background, I'm not sure like what I'm doing wrong, but they're always like, the page is gone, Miss Foster. The page is gone, Miss Foster.
So what I think sometimes is oftentimes kids will say that because their internet is so slow. So if you just noticed, like it took a minute for things to populate when you pull open a new page. What I tell kids first is, hey, just refresh the page. And if it's still not there, what you can always do is just distribute the new page to them using the individual distribution page. I also like to teach kids too of, hey, if you accidentally delete something, if you go to this home page, there's an undo button right here. You can click undo and it'll bring your stuff back. So some kids, yeah, I think it's a combination of internet speed, but also sometimes kids do delete their information out. And you can tell them, just hit Control Z or this undo button and it'll pop back up. Yeah, so, and I acknowledge there are some kids that they also deliberately delete things out too. And you can always just go into their notebook and see exactly what the issue is. So oftentimes if a kid says something's missing, I'll go to their notebook and I'll be like, it's right here, dude. You just got to refresh the page and give it a second. Yeah, so I hope that kind of answers it, Miss Foster, because I know it is frustrating sometimes where the kids do kind of move things around. And I'll talk sort of about how I think you should design things in once I get to like some tips and links in a second. But I do want to show you how to review student works before we start talking about how to invite kids to your notebook so we can get to Dr. Sutton's question as well. So the last thing we kind of talk about here in this class notebook page is this review student work button. And if you click this, what it's going to allow you to do is lock pages so that kids can't edit them anymore. So for instance, let's say students wrote an essay, right? And I want to go and I want to close them so that they can't submit any more work on that page. If you go to this review student work button and you select a page to review, and of course I just talked about how it takes a long time. I want to lock maybe this how to assign and grade pages. I click next and it's going to bring up all the students with that page. And if you hit this page locking button and select the students, it's now locked. They can't edit that page. So that also might be something, Miss Foster, as well, for you to kind of use to your advantage. So the beautiful thing about this is the kids can still see the work. They just can't change the page. It's going to come up as read only. They can't move anything around, can't add anything to it. So that also might be a function that might be useful for you as well. Yes, so you can send you can send information to the same notebook as well. And let me unlock poor Miss Hadley and Mr. Reynolds as well, so I can keep it moving. But you can do that, Dr. Sutton, in the distribute page function. So if you come up here, it'll click this cross notebook distribution. You can send it to any new class notebook that you create. So you can do that as well. Or you can also just change the name and delete the students out if you feel that way as well. That's also another good strategy. So we talked about how to create pages. We talked about how to assign information. I'm going to show you now how to invite your students. So here is the basic ways to get kids into the notebook. The hard way, they can go to office.com and log in using their CCSD credentials, their whole students.first.lastname@cobbk12.org. And if they go to their OneDrive and click shared in the upper left-hand corner, the notebook will pop up if it's been sent to them. If you've added them, it'll automatically go to their OneDrive. The easy way is to go to the notebook manager and to create a link, and then you can post it to your CTLS or just put it in the chat. So I'll show you one more time how to do that. That notebook manager button is right here. And if you click this little black button, it's going to open up a window that looks like this. And you'll see right down here, here's your link for the OneNote notebook. Weirdly, I don't know why they have this OneNote colon. You'll have to delete that out. But if you click copy, you can put that into the chat just like I'm doing right now. And students can open that up if they have access to the notebook. It'll open up immediately to them. So that's the easiest way to do that. So we'll talk a little bit about this information in a second. You can create links for parents too, if you want to, so that they can go in and they can see what their child has been working on, but they necessarily can't change the information. So yes, one more time, Mr. Butts is asking for how to get people in there. To get to this OneNote training page, this is in the OneNote Manager button. It's this black little notebook right here. So it's kind of one of the most important buttons on the function. So if you click this, it's going to take you to this page. And here is, you can add sections from here. You can change the names of them. Also, there's some other functions I'll show you guys in a couple of minutes. But if you click this copy button and you put it in students' Zoom chat or to your CTLS page, they will open that automatically. It'll prompt them to log in with their Microsoft 365 account, and it will open up, and you'll see exactly like you did. All I did to get you guys here today is I just took that same link and I turned it into a bit.ly. So that's what you see right here. So I'll send that to students if they need to get in and all that information. So that's how you get kids to open the notebook on their own. Did that help you, Dr. Sutton? Did that answer your question on how to get kids there?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. So I do want to show you, yeah, no problem, Mr. Butts. I do want to show you a couple more things before I kind of have you guys move on. Number one, this content library. So if you're someone who just joined today, and I'm sorry if you have an empty notebook, you can pull this stuff, copy and paste it into your own notebook by right-clicking on any of these materials, hitting copy, and putting it into a section in your own notebook by hitting paste in your own notebook. So all the information is here in the content library. Kids can grab this on their own. And then you've got the collaboration space. And this is kind of one of my more fun kind of things that students can work on. Anything that you put in this page, students can work on here. So I want to show you kind of how I think about that with kids. Because you have this draw feature, which is really nice. So what I would do really quickly is on your own page, go up and click collaboration space, click on the tab that says how to use the collaboration space, and then click this Q&A page. So it looks like what I'm looking at right now. So if you click that Q&A page, it'll say drop your questions below. That's all that's there. Students, oftentimes, I'll have them do like matching activities where they'll draw lines between things, or sometimes we play Pictionary for review using this. So you have some functions here where kids can choose. There's a highlighter, there's a pencil, there's all kinds of colors. They can do math equations on here. So what I'd like you to do is, just so you can see like the kids, if you grab something like this, I'm drawing on my page, it'll appear in your notebook as well in the collaboration space. So anything that students work on in here, it's collaborative. Everyone in the class can work on it at the same time. It's like a Google Doc. So if you want to take a second just to kind of doodle around in here so you can see how kids kind of use it, you can as well. And you get there by going to the collaboration space and clicking on that Q&A document, and students can all work collaboratively in this space. So it's a nice feature for kids to be able to work together. There's a couple of other things I do want to show you guys about tips, about how to kind of add some things, and I'll open it up to you guys for some commentary. If you go back, I'm going to talk about a couple of things, kind of how I've thought about how I'm going to use this for kind of hybrid instruction, and the way that I've found the easiest kind of ways to get information usable and accessible for kids in their pages. So I'll talk about that first. What I found is that if you screenshot information on your computer, so for instance, I found a poem that I really want my kids to read. Instead of uploading that as a file printout, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll put that in there as a picture. So I'll actually show you on my own class notebook really quickly. This is what my 9th literature students, that's not the right one, of course. Oops. see. So let me show you. Of course, now I've messed it up. All right, so here's my freshman's notebook. This is what they work in every single day. Sometimes I found it's much more easy for kids to get the information they need if it's been converted to a picture. So I started the whole first part of the semester putting large documents in there for kids to use as PDFs. And I just found it was just kind of clunky for kids to use. So what I started doing is using some of these instructions that I'll show you. You can take a picture of anything that's on your computer screen. And if you use the insert picture button, you can put that information in there as a picture. So let me find one that is solid. So we did a lesson on Shakespearean sonnets. And what I did was I just screenshotted the PowerPoints that the kids were working on so they could annotate it and draw on it, highlight, add some notes to it. So it's a functional picture then that they can type over. So in order to screenshot, there's a whole bunch of information here for you where you can kind of see how you do that on a PC. I think it's more useful than putting information in there as a printout. So there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can hit the print screen button. That's up in the right upper corner of your keyboard, and that'll take a picture of the entire screen, everything of your screen. You can hit this Alt print screen, and that'll open just one window. Whatever's on your desktop, it'll take a photo of it. So this one, I think the Windows Shift S combination, basically what that will do is it'll allow you to take it'll bring up a little tiny cursor, and you can take a picture by dragging it across the screen of anything you choose. So I think that that's a useful tool. And then to get those pieces of information in there, you hit this insert picture from file button and you can upload it directly to a page. So I think that that works just a little bit better. So that information is there in the content library. And I do kind of just want to take 1 second to talk to you guys about how I'm kind of visualizing using this as a teacher during hybrid instruction. So we all know that this is going to be a challenge with, how do we get kids who are doing virtual? How do we get kids who are face-to-face to be able to see the same materials? I've kind of thought about using OneNote sort of as just like a old school document camera, sort of as a overhead projector that I would project both digitally and onto my Recordex by using this function. So there's a function on your computer, and if you click this function button and F8, where you can extend your screen. And what that basically is going to do is going to divide your computer screen in half. So whatever you keep on your personal screen is going to be what you see. And whatever you drag over to the right, to the far right, is going to appear on your Recordex. Or you can even cast information and screen share that information to students who are virtual. So my thought is this: I will drag my information from my screen over to my Recordex, and I'll share that screen so that the kids who are virtual will see the same thing that the kids who are working face-to-face will see. And then on my screen, I'll keep my email open. I'll keep the kids who are virtual, I'll keep their faces over there in the chat so that I can work with them. But I think that it's kind of, it helps you with some privacy, and also like you're leveling the playing field. No kid is seeing anything different than any other kid. And I just, working with freshmen too, like, I don't want to be that teacher to be like, yeah, like, you're 14 years old. I just projected your face to the entire class and now we can all see you. That's not ideal for them either. So here is how I think you can bridge that gap, because there are going to be kids who come back without devices, and it's a really tough thing. I'm going to talk to you guys about the app in a second, because if you project the OneNote information onto your Recordex, technically you can give kids a notebook and they'll be able to take physical notes in front of them if they don't have a device. I'll show you how you can add like kids' work that they've done physically to their notebook in a really easy way. So my thought kind of is this: if a kid doesn't have a device, just give them a paper notebook to use. They can work off the board on whatever you're working on. And the beautiful thing is this: if you're using the Recordex, and let's say you're doing a math lesson, you can, whatever you write on your Recordex is immediately going to record into the notebook. So the kids who are seeing it virtually, they're not going to see anything different than what you're doing on the board. But this is kind of a tricky situation. And it's going to be something you're going to have to play with to figure out. But I do want to show you the app because I'm planning to use this in tandem with OneNote. So the app, I took some screenshots from my own app, and this is how it looks in iOS. I can't really speak to Android that much, but in the iOS app, you can do a lot of the same things that you can do here on the desktop version. You can build pages, so you can create materials directly from the app. And the beautiful thing is this: what I'm probably going to tell students to do is I'll have them open up the app if they're working on their phone, and then I'll have them, once everything loads, just turn their phone to airplane mode so that it's not eating into the Wi-Fi. And even if you are disconnected from the Wi-Fi, the second you reconnect, it'll upload all your materials to the cloud. So kids can continue to work on their phones even if they're not connected to the Wi-Fi, which is a really nice feature. You can go through and take a look at all the notebooks. Like there's multiple ones that you can work through in the app. And the other thing that's really great is you can upload photos from your mobile camera. So for instance, I can use the app. I can go to Mr. Frazier's notebook if he's a kid in my class, click on his notebook, and then I can insert a picture and I can take a picture. So Mr. Frazier, he can bring me his notebook, social distance, and I can have him hold it up, take a picture of whatever work he's done, and it will upload immediately into his notebook so it doesn't have to go anywhere. That way you're not taking papers from kids. There's not the temptation to give them pages and stuff. And even if you do give them things like handouts, you can keep it someplace that is not going to get lost. And kids can even do that themselves if they get in the habit. They can upload that information on their own. Some of the cons of this: you can't lock pages from the app, unfortunately, and you can't send kids pages. You can't distribute them information from there. So that's kind of my thought process. And yes, I know it sounds like a lot, but I think if you play with it and kind of get used to it in the first couple of days back in your classroom, it might be something that you can kind of work through. So the last thing I have is this: I've got these tips and links for these guys. And this is kind of the exhaustive things that other teachers have told me. I've kind of pulled together with the help of some of my PCC members. These are all things that that teachers have kind of said, like, these are the problems I'm having. These are the things we need to work through. So a couple of things: whatever you do, don't delete the pre-made sections like the teacher only section, the content library, or the collaboration space, because it's a fatal flaw of this program that if you delete it, you can't get it back. That was one of the worst mistakes I made when I was first building this, is I accidentally deleted the teacher only section and I had to start from scratch. So whatever you do, if you are tempted to right click on any of these things like the content library and delete it, don't do it, because then it's gone forever. I don't know why that's a function, but it is. Also, if you're having trouble getting kids into a notebook, make sure you check their name in student view, because some kids, if they have a common name, even if sometimes they don't have a common name, sometimes kids have unique names that you wouldn't think are repeated in the district, but they actually are. So make sure that you put in their full first dot last name at cobk12.org in order to add them. Another thing, if you delete a kid because they leave your class or whatever, or you have something you need to restart them from fresh, sometimes they don't disappear for a couple of days, and it takes some time to kick over. It was just a bug that they were having. For our individuals who are working like ESOL or students with disabilities, if you have kids open up the Windows 10 desktop app, there's an immersive reader function in there that it will read kids whatever you've put on there. As long as it's typed into a pane, it will read. It has a read to function. Kids can annotate. They can increase and decrease the size of the text. It's really useful for kids if they have disabilities or are learning English for the first time. We talked a little bit about screenshotting. And the other thing I said, kind of I figured out in the long run, is that if you these text blocks, these panes, they can kind of get tedious. So less is sort of more with them. I think that kids were telling me too, like, Mr. Ross, there's just way too much stuff on this page. You've got to do less. I think it's fine just to put like a couple of paragraphs on one page and a few questions. It doesn't have to be the most beautiful thing in the world. And sometimes including less information is just a little bit easier for kids. The other stuff is the draw menu. It's useful for students. If they're looking to take notes or to highlight, they can highlight over anything they want to. So for instance, if they want to highlight Michelle's face from Full House over here, they can. They want to draw a mustache on her, they can. It gives them some freedom of expression. It gives them an ability to kind of respond how they want to do that. Finally, if you go to this notebook manager, you can set custom groups. That's not something I would encourage you to do if you're doing this for the first time. I'd try and get kids in just to kind of get them used to the process and working through this as well, just kind of on their own. But as always, too, if you discover things that are working well for you, please feel free to share them. You can obviously send that stuff to me or drop it into some of the pages that we've created in your notebooks. Mr. Butts asked me to repeat what I said about airplane mode. So for kids that are working from the app, what I've kind of realized is that I'm worried about connectivity with the internet. So kids can, if they use the app on their own personal phone, they can open up pages, let them load, disconnect from the internet, and they can still work on those things. They can input their information. And then once they're done, just turn the Wi-Fi back on and it'll upload so that you can see it. It's just a little bit, just something that I'm kind of planning on troubleshooting as we go through, because I expect there will be times where we're having some limited connectivity. And also it just might be good practice just for us as teachers, just to kind of limit kids' connectivity, just to make sure that we can all get through the day. So that being said, that's pretty much the overview of everything. I know it's a lot of information, but it's all here for you guys. It's not going anywhere. So if you click that OneNote Train button again, this link that I sent you guys, you can get into this at any time, or you can get into that by going to your OneDrive on office.com in order to get that information. I'd love to stick around and answer questions from you guys if you have them, and kind of talk to you guys about kind of where you see yourselves. But also, I'm going to ask you to do this as well before you go. There's a quick little just survey, and it just is a 1-question survey about whether or not you think this is attainable to you after this, or whether or not you might need a little bit more training. It's just a yes, no, or maybe. Does this seem usable for you or not? So I'm going to drop that in the chat for you guys. If you don't want to stick around, please feel free just to complete that survey and hit me up on Teams or via email if you have specific questions. But I'm going to stick around for a little bit to ask any other questions that people have, or burning questions that we need to know about OneNote. Cool. It doesn't seem like anyone has burning questions, but I'll stick around anyways if you need help. You're welcome, guys. I hope it works out for you. And feel free to email me if you're having real problems with the system and need some help getting started.
I just want to know a little bit more about splitting that screen again.
Sure.
So once you split this, you're actually as if you're in two different, like you know how we have different windows on ours. You're actually in two different windows. One you're going to project on the record export, and then one on your computer.
Exactly. So you can see the options that you have, Dr. Sutton, and what I recommend is this: when you get to school tomorrow, connect your computer to your docking station. And once you do that, if you hit this function F8 button, you'll see an extend screen button. So any window that you pull completely off to the side, you can have on a separate screen. And essentially, that's your computer's function to allow you to use multiple different displays. So if you want to have like a big monitor, or you want to put stuff on your TV, use an HDMI cable, that's how you do that. And my plan is I'll just share what I am projecting on my Recordex to my virtual students, so that everyone's seeing the same thing, and students are kind of siloed, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. Okay, I'm gonna try that tomorrow. I'll check it out. Okay,
Sure.
Thank you.
I see you, Mr. Frazier. I suggest just dive in because it is a lot. What I would suggest is, if you're going to create a class notebook, just add like 1 or 2 kids to it and just play around with it, just in case it goes really south, that you're not missing anything crazy.
Well, it's liable to go south with me. So yeah, thanks.
So give yourself some credit. I think that it does take some learning curve. So it took me a couple of weeks to kind of really get fluent with it. But now that it's flowing with the ninth graders, it's worked really well. And it's just an easy way to kind of keep track of what they're actually accomplishing on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, let me know if you've got problems.
All right. Appreciate you. See you.
No problem. Have a good one.
You too.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to stop recording.